So as we think about the iconic brands, we don't have to be Disney to be great. We can be whatever business we have, and we can differentiate on service. And service is a defendable competitive advantage. If I were to ask you right now, in the Fortune 500, name the truly customer-centric companies, when I ask that question of audiences, rarely do we get past 10. 10 out of 500 are the greatest companies there are. 490 all know that it's good business to be customer-centric, and yet they don't or can't deliver on it. And that's because it's not easy, which is good news and bad news. It's bad news that it's not easy. It's hard. The good news is if we get there, it's a defendable competitive advantage that our competitors can't buy. So I was the first to define the word touchpoint on Wikipedia years ago. And my first definition had the physical, communication, and human elements. But I went to a movie one day, and I walked into the movie theater, and they were popping popcorn, and I smelled the popcorn. And as I smelled the popcorn, it was kind of a Pavlovian response in that I started to popcorn. I think I want some popcorn. And it hit me then that our senses can also pick up touch points. Think when you go into a store in the mall, if they're playing a song that you really like, how it kind of buoys you, it picks you up. I like the song, I feel like dancing, and maybe I feel like buying more. So the music is a sensory touch point. The temperature in this room is a sensory touch point. So as we think about the power of touch points, and we think about the touch points that our customers have with us, physical, communication, human, and sensory, we need to build the competency of identifying the touch points, understanding what customers and the experiences they're having at each of those touch points, and then designing a future state full of valued touch points, designing those touch points through the lens of who are we and what are we about, our identity, designing the touch points through the lens of what information do we have from our customers that would help make this touch point customer-centric, through the lens of what's our long-term strategy, where is our organization going, the lens of what's the goal of this touch point. So this needs to be a competency, and it's not a project that you stop and start. The ability to map touch points, to map the current state, and then design a future state full of valued touch points is not something you start today and end tomorrow. It's a competency, and that's a difference. We need to build that as something we as our organizations do every day. Value touchpoint mapping never, ever, ever stops, because in your organization, you're adding new touch points every day. You're creating new products and new services. And so we need to be able to inventory and map our touch points, and you do it kind of by experiences. We don't have to map the whole holistic journey at one time. Take a small piece of it. Do a pilot. When you have your identity, who we are and what we're about, and your long-term strategy done, and when you're collecting intelligence, going to the right people, the right time, the right information, when those two converge into your value touchpoint mapping, that's when the magic happens. When we start to develop valued touch points based on what we know because of the intelligence, when our valued touch points are based on who we are and what we're about, wow, it's really, really powerful, and it's magical. I moved to Florida a couple of years ago, and I needed a dry cleaner. And so I sought a dry cleaner, one that I could drive up to, because in the States, some dry cleaners have drive-thrus where you don't have to get out of cars. There's a window. And I sought one on a roof that I drove frequently, and the first one I tried, I drove up and they came out, they picked up my clothes, they asked my name, they took down the information, and away my clothes went. A couple days later, I returned to pick up my clothes, and I rolled down the window, and the man came up and said, "Mr. Brigman, I have your dry cleaning. It's going to be $22. I said, "Thank you." And he says, "I'll be right back with your dry cleaning." And he goes and he gets my clothes, and he comes back with the dry cleaning, but he comes back with something else. A cold bottle of water. He says, "Mr. Brigman, here, I would like you to have this bottle of water." Now in Florida, it gets pretty hot. Having a nice cold bottle of water was refreshing. And I thought, well, that was a really nice touch point. They've done some analysis of their call center. And so every time a customer has to call back about the same issue, their likelihood to recommend that company declines 36%. So I call once. This company, interestingly enough, is measuring call time. So what's the rep doing? You know, blah, 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 and get them off the phone. Because I'm measured on how quickly I can get this person off the phone. Well, now maybe this person's issue isn't resolved, so now they have to call again. Having to call again, they're 36% less likely to refer that company. So they're on the phone. Again, the call rep, ooh, too long. If they have to call back a third time, another 36% less likely to recommend. Antonio was a neurologist, and he had a patient named Elliot. Elliot was a great father and was active in his church. Elliot held a great management position at a large corporation, and Elliot was really smart. Elliot tested in the 97th percentile of IQ, of intelligence. Unfortunate for Elliot, he had a small tumor in his brain. It was in his cortex by the frontal lobe. And it had to be removed. He went through the operation. The tumor was removed. After the operation, and Elliot had another IQ test. Elliot again scored in the 97th percentile for intelligence. But all wasn't right with Elliot. The area of the brain that housed the tumor, the area of the brain that had to be removed, was the area that integrates visceral emotions into the decision-making process. This smart man, this man who helped run his family, who helped at the church, who made decisions every day as a manager at a great corporation, could no longer make a decision. By removing emotions, Elliot couldn't make a decision despite how smart he was. So one of the keys to success, one of the keys of valued touch points, one of the things we have to remember is that it's an emotional connection that helps our customers choose us. It's our ability to connect on an emotional level that will help us get and keep our customers.